This is the Donner DPB510S, and it's one of the cheapest electric basses you can buy on the market today. And it's actually surprisingly not bad at all. It's actually pretty good, to say the least. Something that's perfect for beginners or intermediate people, or someone that's really looking for a nice mod project. You get a nice foundation of a good instrument here, and that's pretty awesome for $150. So the year is now 2021. A lot's happened, a lot has not happened, to say the least. And also at the same time, you can get some pretty great instruments for not a lot of money nowadays, which is just a very awesome thought, just because growing up, there wasn't a lot of options. It was basically a Squier Affinity or a Squier Affinity. So that was basically all there really was in terms of a cheap bass. It's really for anybody. But now there are so many options for young musicians and people who are just starting out. And I think that's a really great thing, because it forces companies to really look at their line and say, what can we do better? How can we make this more inexpensive and more accessible to people? So insert the Donner brand. I heard about this brand probably a few years ago at least, but they never really caught my eye or anything like that. But it's something where I kept hearing about them more and more and more, where their relatively inexpensive basses actually are not that bad. And I'm pretty excited that it's actually a damn good instrument, to say the least. But before we dig into this bass, and for the sake of transparency, I do want to say that this video is sponsored by Donner. But as always, that has no effect on how I feel about it or the opinions that I'm stating in this video. So yeah, let's get going. So this is the Donner DPB510S. Now let's just kind of deconstruct the name a little bit. DPB. I wonder what that could possibly stand for. But obviously this is an entry-level, intermediate, inexpensive instrument based upon the Fender Precision Bass. And really, it's kind of got down all the major parts you need for it. Starting with the basswood body that has a very familiar looking shape, it's something that's actually very surprising and quite welcoming, because it's not super light and it doesn't feel cheap at all either. Just like any regular old precision bass, it's pretty straightforward. You have one pickup, one volume knob, and one tone knob, and that's about it. Now this pickup itself, it is quite punchy and quite boomy, a little too boomy I think actually. The pickup itself has a nice overall warmth to it, but I think it's just a little too hot actually, if that makes a lot of sense. I feel I enjoy really hot pickups, but it's just a little bit too heavy on the low end too. But it's something where if you adjust the height of the pickup and lower it a bit, it's much more usable in my opinion. For the bridge, it's just a chrome bridge of some sort. I'm not quite sure. It's obviously not heavy duty, but it does the job surprisingly. Moving on up, you have a 22 fret Canadian maple neck that has a Perilla fretboard. And this fretboard is actually quite reminiscent of rosewood in my opinion. This is really just a heads up for anyone that buys any inexpensive instrument brand new. Go ahead and just take those strings off that come with it. The stock strings are always garbage. I don't know what, but they're always garbage. Go ahead and restring it with a pair of your strings that you like, and then go ahead and hydrate the fretboard too. The fretboards on these instruments are usually pretty dry. For this instrument in particular, I just did a once over with the fretboard conditioner that I have, and it already feels and looks much healthier. Another thing that a lot of inexpensive basses have are really just bad frets, but surprisingly, these are really, really nice. I'm not quite sure what material they're made of, but none of them are sprouting out and there's no sharp edges of any kind, which is really nice actually. The neck itself is not too thick like a lot of cheaper instruments that I've played before. It actually has a very nice size to it, but it's not really cheap feeling either, which is, again, sort of a trend I've come across with this particular bass. And then finally moving up to the headstock, the tuners, this might be the biggest surprise of the bass. The tuners are not garbage. Yes, I know that kind of sounds like it can't be true, but it actually is quite surprising. These are chrome tuners, but the tuners themselves are actually made of steel, and they keep in tune very, very well, like astonishingly well, because I was not expecting that at all from a $150 bass. Another really nice thing about this bass when you buy it, it's $150 shipped to your door, and it comes with a gig bag, a strap, an instrument cable, and 2 Allen keys in case you need to do any truss rod or bridge adjustments. Now, surprisingly, out of the box, it didn't really need a setup that much at all. If you order one, don't be surprised if you need to do just a small setup, just small adjustments here and there. But I was actually really surprised that all I needed to do was go ahead and put new strings on it, hydrate the fingerboard, and it was pretty much set to go after that. So overall with the Donner DPB510S, I'm pretty surprised and quite shocked at how good of an instrument this is for only $150 shipped. It feels really solid, and that's, I think, a really big thing that a lot of people don't really talk about when it comes to cheaper instruments, is that when they feel cheap, it's just not the same. But this bass just overall does feel completely solid, and the playability is actually really nice too, especially again for a bass that is $150. The pickup is not my favorite, but it's just overly boomy in my opinion. But again, I think with 150 bucks, you can make this into a pretty awesome mod project too. But of course, let me know what y'all think about this bass and what other awesome cheap instruments have I not checked out yet. Thank you, of course, so much for watching, for liking, subscribing, for commenting, follow me on social media, all those awesome things. Really do appreciate y'all, and a humongous thank you to my Patreon supporters over there. Just look at them. Mwah, mwah. If you want to be like one of these beautiful people over here and help support the channel every single month, be including things like early access to videos, giveaways, and more, then head on over to my Patreon page. But again, thank y'all for watching, and as always, no matter where in the world you are, stay safe, practice that bass, and I'll see y'all next time.